sometimes it's important to go back to the basics. And by that I mean, in talking about the principles and the teachings of a fourth way school, when referring to the physical body, we refer to it as a machine because it has a right working and there is a wrong working of the machine. And the principle that I think it's important for all of us to remember is that there is a right working of the machine. There is a possibility that if every center of the brain is working appropriately, and then there's a clear understanding of our body types and our chief features, that we can have a journey on the earth while we're here in alignment with body, soul, spirit, and the right working of the machine. I think it's important to remember that we're supposed to be able to work correctly, and we're not supposed to, and then this leads me to the next point that I think is really important to remember. There's no center for negative emotions. In other words, negative emotions is not a natural emanation of the machine or of the avatar. If I sometimes feel like it's kinder to call it an avatar because it's a suit that we wear while we're here. So if that's the case, if there's no such thing as negative emotions, then they have to have some purpose. Can we use negative emotions to assist us in figuring out the correct way of being in life and using the avatar, the machine? And I believe that that's the key. The key is anytime you're having a negative emotion, you need to look at that and say, okay, why am I having this? The tendency is always to look outside of ourselves for the answer. Or if we're looking within ourselves, we're blaming. It's a blame game, right? It's either I'm blaming myself for not being able to stay out of negative emotions, or I'm blaming someone else for putting me in the negative emotions. And yet at the end of the day, it's not about either. Negative emotions should be our teachers. It's very clear to me that negative emotions should be our teachers. And the person who triggers you the most is your biggest teacher. And the other part that I think is really important to remind ourselves, especially now as we enter the darkest days of the year, we're approaching the summer solstice, which means the light on Earth, the sun, the influence of the sun on the Earth is the least in the entire year. And then from the 21st, which is Friday, all the way up back into the summer solstice, which is the highest peak, the highest influence of the sun on Earth, we're going to gradually increase light. So we're approaching the darkest periods, and you could probably feel this in your body. You probably could feel this in your emotional body, purging, missing, regrets. A lot of things are being moved as we approach darkness. And I just want to, again, be a reminder. We're not our thoughts. We call eyes in the fourth way a thought. So we're a machine that has lots and lots of eyes, lots and lots of thoughts. Well, guess what? None of them are real. 99% of every thought we have is not real. Meaning, it's coming from something called inner considering, which is always, it's about self-importance and always thinking of yourself and how you relate to everything else, and not just realizing that everyone just has to be who they are and you're just one other drop in the ocean. Then there's imagination. We go into imagination. We go into negative emotions. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Eyes, thousands and thousands of eyes. Very few of them are real. So the way that the brilliant part of this work is when you have the observer that's with you on this journey. And the observer I call the higher self, is the divine part of me that exists in a completely different dimension, connected to the avatar here, the machine. She, and I know that it sounds, for some who are not familiar with the two voices of the avatar and the higher self, it might sound a little like, oh, she's nuts. But no, once you experience that part, you understand there is another voice. And this voice is calm, cool, collected, wise, beyond your imagination. And everything is brought to complete simplicity. And nothing is missing. Everything is complete. You're whole in that voice. And when you're in this kind of work, slowly, at least the observer can be there most of the time, realizing and discerning what the avatar, the machine, is going through. But then sometimes it steps forward and is able to step in and be there most of the time. So cultivate a relationship with this part of you. When you are in the most friction, take a step aside and ask yourself these questions. Who's having this experience? What part of this is really not me, but something in me that I still need to work on? And you'll be surprised in the answers. And then when you're able to step outside of yourself for a moment, just step to the side of the experience, then you start to cultivate the presence of the observer. And then the observer becomes more and more accessible to you. Even though sometimes we have still, the avatar and the machine is going to continue to have its experience and is going to continue to interact in life. Slowly, the observer will start to take more and more control, to the point where there might be a moment where while the avatar is in the middle of an experience of negative emotions or having unnecessary imaginary thoughts about something, that the observer will be able to intercede. And then slowly there's a shifting. So it's like, first you start out in the work where the avatar machine is in complete control and you don't even know you have an observer. And then you start to experience your life with the observer and the avatar machine having the experience together, but still not being able to step in. The observer not being able to step in because there's just so much, we're still so identified with life and all the things that are happening. And then slowly the observer steps forward and the machine is able to take a step back and allow the divine part of us to have the experience. And there's an incredible amount of wisdom there. So I just felt like it was really important to just go over the basics. You're not your eyes. You're not your thoughts. Your thoughts are not real. 99% of your thoughts are not real. So that's a lot to think about. Love you, love you, love you.